This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, saving your day from boredom with the best podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with fellow Manchild, Johnny Karlic. And we are back for another edition of the Rick and Johnny podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcast, your one-stop shop for superheroes, for nerdy stuff, for TV, for entertainment, for movies, for basically, Johnny, everything under the two nerdy suns. And we are back with a jam-packed show for you guys today. Going to be talking a little bit about DC. Going to be taking a look at Marvel. Well, Fox Marvel, but Marvel. Then we're going to be taking a look at some gaming. Check out Too Old to Game. I'll pitch them later in the show. We're going to be talking Overwatch, the new hero, Baptiste. Kind of, I say full breakdown, but we're just kind of looking at the abilities and stuff and then what we think of the character so far. Before I get into everything, make sure to check us out on patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That is how you can help and support us. And Johnny, I actually have some big news. This is the first podcast where he is going to get his name mentioned. I hope he listens to the Rick and Johnny podcast. I got to look it up because we have a new $10 patron for MVP. Got to say a special thank you to Matthew Grantham, who is our newest $10 patron. And, of course, if you join us at the $10 tier, you can join any podcast you want for that month talking about a topic that you would like to discuss. So if you want to join the Rick and Johnny podcast, support us at that $10 tier, and each and every month you can join the Rick and Johnny podcast. But, Johnny, let's jump into everything. Before we get into Suicide Squad, I got a special announcement, by the way. You will be happy to hear this. I don't know how many of these fans we have in the MVP universe, but Dave got me watching a show yesterday that I know you are very fond of. If people watched the Rick and Johnny podcast last week on YouTube, they would have saw a character from this show on your shirt, but I am officially diving into the My Hero Academia series. Watched 2 episodes at Dave's house yesterday, and then when I got home while I was editing stuff, I believe I watched 6 more? 6 more?
Is what you said?
I'm on episode 8. I started either episode 8, episode 9, and then said I should go to bed because I had to wake up for this podcast in the morning. But I wanted to tell you here on the podcast because I know you are a, can I say diehard My Hero Academia fan? Are you at that level?
Close, but not. I don't know about there.
I mean, you have a shirt.
I do. Do I have a second one at home? I do. I have a shirt, and I'm waiting for the movie to come out so I can buy it.
Is the movie? So has the movie already come out?
It came out
in theaters.
It was in theaters.
Okay.
It has not come out. It doesn't come out to the end of March.
Okay, so
for US.
So I wanted to bring that up.
Sorry,
as I am just diving into that, and maybe now because I'm diving into it, maybe we can talk about My Hero Academia
finally
in the future. But let's get into
when you finally get caught up on the episodes.
Yes. Well, there's
3 seasons right now.
Well, there's 3 seasons, and the thing that I like about. Thing that I find funny about anime, kind of reminds me of like the Pokemon series.
Yeah.
From like when we were a kid. It's like 25 episodes in the first season, 50 in the second season, 25 in the third. So it's like, no, none of these Netflix and DC Universe series where it's like, 13 episodes. No, we're hitting you with a full 25, 50 episodes
I think
in a season.
Fairy Tail was like... First season was like 50 to 70 episodes, like somewhere in that range of 50 to 70 episodes. Like,
is My Hero your favorite anime? I don't know how deep your anime
my
watching
roots don't
pool
go
is.
It's not very deep right now because I watched a few. It's up there for sure. Okay. I really like it.
Mine, just throwing it out there so people can get a gauge of where I'm coming from. Code Geass will always be my favorite anime. My favorite one, hands down. You never forget your first. That's what they say, ladies and gentlemen. You never forget your first.
Technically, DBZ was my first.
Technically, even not my first, but like my first as an adult.
First that you like went out and saw it. It wasn't like the DBZ that we all as
we
kids
grew
got
up on that shit.
Yeah, we got introduced. It's a gateway anime.
It's a gateway anime. It's a gateway drug, man.
But, I didn't say drug. I said anime.
But let's get into the main show. We're looking at DC to start because there's some interesting news coming out of the grapevines this week, kind of surrounding Suicide Squad 2, the Suicide Squad movie that will be produced and directed and written by James Gunn. And that news is that Will Smith will no longer be in Suicide Squad. Him as Deathstroke will no longer be in the movie. And the update, and this is from on Twitter, Justin Kroll, first off tweeted from Variety, exclusive, Will Smith exits Suicide Squad sequel after dates could not be worked out. And then in a second tweet, he said, one item I forgot to add to the story. Sources say execs are now deciding whether they will recast the role and replace Deadshot with a different character. Are they going to recast the role? That's option one. Option two, replace Deadshot with a different character from the DC universe to join the team in the sequel. Johnny, what I want to ask you to start is just on a base level, how should DC, how should Warner Brothers handle the exit of Will Smith from Suicide Squad 2?
I think it would be better. I think we've gone through stuff like this before. Don't necessarily just recast a character unless like you can trick us with trick us, like, for example, in the Marvel universe they did it with
Banner.
Well, that didn't trick us because we noted. You can notice that right away.
Yeah.
We didn't notice that. I think his name is Fandral. One of the Warriors 3 was swapped from the first to second movie.
Zachary Levi,
and you didn't notice because he's such a second character. Same with Rhodey. I mean, we noticed that because those were all just contractual things that didn't work out. I think instead. Well,
the thing with Rhodey was, I think it was the guy's name is something Howard, I think the actor was. He just wanted more money to play Rhodey. And then they said no, and Don Cheadle's like, I'm here. I'll play Rhodey.
I'll play it.
And then that's where he stepped in. I don't know the Warriors 3, why they recasted with
maybe it just
Zachary
didn't work.
Levi.
I don't know. I never looked into it. So.
But there's numerous reasons of why you might have to change and recast
but
someone.
my thing would be like a bigger character like that, unless you have to recast it. I would say if you can make the storyline work without him, just kind of write him off. And I'm not saying like off-screen death. I'm saying he went back to his kid, or he decided to stay on the line so he can get back to his kid. Whatever. You can make it that way.
Yeah,
kind of noble pursuit.
And I mean, here's a thing too, and this is what plays into the whole not knowing what to do. Is I think the thing that Warner Brothers has to decide, obviously, is which route do you want to go, and which one will be better for the movie in general. Will it be better to keep, and of course, I cut myself off here. It all depends on James Gunn, too.
Yeah.
Of what he's thinking for a story. If Deadshot is that integral to a story, like, let's be honest, in Marvel, there was no way you were going to get rid of the Hulk. It's not
exactly. You can't just drop him.
It's not like you're going to say, well, Edward Norton's out, let's replace the Hulk with Wolverine. I know that rights wouldn't have worked then.
But just example
of, hey, let's put a different character in for him because we don't want to recast. They were just like, no, we have to have the Hulk in this movie. And that's a question that needs to be answered here. And with Suicide Squad, that's an interesting part, is because there are so many incarnations of this team. Like, I'm looking alone. So the original Silver Age Suicide Squad from the Brave and the Bold 25 from like the 50s to the late 80s was just Rick Flag, Jessica Bright, Hugh Evans, and then Corinne Grace. Then after that, you get that first volume 1 of Suicide Squad, 80s into the early 90s, where you get Deadshot, Amanda Waller, Enchantress, Captain Boomerang is in that Suicide Squad. You get guys like the Penguin, Killer Frost, Velocity, Slipknot. And that is something that I think is interesting of how important is Deadshot to that story. And looking back at Suicide Squad 1, I would say if you're going to continue off of that, Will Smith's Deadshot was pretty important to that story. Like, it was him and Margot Robbie were the two, maybe because it was just Will Smith, and he was like one of the good performances from that movie.
Yeah. I think that's what really is worth the more of the fact of it is that the movie was more focused on Margot Robbie and Will Smith's characters because they just honestly they just kept focusing on those two for the most part, and the other characters are just kind of on the side until you got like little detrimental points of where this is them or this is their time to shine. Like I know he actually died in it. The one Diablo, I think it was.
Slipknot.
Is that Slipknot? No, Slipknot was the one that
Slipknot
died in the beginning.
Yeah. Diablo was at the end, but he was the fire guy.
When he actually turned into like the full-on
I thought you were
demon.
talking about the beginning.
No,
Slipknot was just tried to run away.
Slipknot was
got his head exploded.
Yeah, Slipknot was the one.
Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah.
Spoilers for Suicide Squad 1.
Slipknot was the one that they used that character to make an example of.
Yeah, basically.
Like, hey, we don't really care. This one's a throwaway. We'll do that. But yeah, I mean, there's probably other characters you can replace them with. Am I familiar? Excuse me. Am I familiar with them? Not really, but
here's the big one people are throwing out, and I just want to throw this your way. Because here's another thing I want to throw on top of it first. Is that there's no cast list right now. Like, we do not know James Gunn-wise what characters he wants to use. Like, people are assuming that, because I'll read it here from the Screen Rant article I'm looking at. While no casting has officially been announced for Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which will technically be a sequel to Ayers' film, but is expected to also try and reinvent the property, Variety sources say that Warner Brothers and DC always planned on asking both Smith and co-star Margot Robbie to return. Smith's departure is reportedly tied to scheduling conflicts, which isn't hard to believe when one considers how much he works. The split is said to be an amicable one. As for Robbie, one assumes she'd likely to work something out to return, as she's already set to star in Birds of Prey for the studio, so is clearly maintaining a positive working relationship. Losing Smith's Deadshot is a clear blow to Suicide Squad, though, as his and Harley's presence could have served to placate fans of the first film that aren't pleased about the change in creative direction. Here's something that people are throwing out that I want to throw your way. Think back to BVS when we saw that. At the end of BVS, you had, and I know that DC is going on a different kind of path where they're kind of not making anything like, yeah, they're connected, but it's not like we're trying to get a DCEU, where it's kind of like, hey, we got a cool Aquaman story here, we got a cool Wonder Woman story here. Oh, for this year, we want to bring them together for a Justice League movie. Like, that is their plans. Let's tell all these individual stories. Oh, and then we'll bring them together for a Justice League movie eventually. Like, they're together, and then they split off again. There are some people out there that are saying, think back to the end of BVS. One of the villains we saw was supposed to be a bigger part in that Justice League film, but wasn't after everything that happened with it. You had, and I'm going to get his first name wrong, Joe Manganiello, who was the Deathstroke character.
Yes,
we saw him at the end. People are saying, give me Manganiello's Deathstroke character.
Have him step in.
As the replacement to Deadshot in Suicide Squad. How would you feel about that? And is that something that Warner Brothers should look to do because they already have the actor in the role, they already have his presence, or should they look to go a different way and bring in somebody, let's say they're not going to do Deadshot. Should they bring in Deathstroke and Manganiello's version, or should they say, hey, we're going to go with a different character and fit something else into this?
I mean, that would be like a decent supplement because, I mean, they have generally the same characteristics. I mean, one's assassin of like straight up blades. Firearms, and one's blades and will use firearms. So, I mean, that would be an interesting one to go off of because then you can just kind of change up some of the kills in different ways in the film than like just straight up shots.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the only thing that I thought about when I saw that was how many versions, and I get that I'm or I should say I'm kind of getting, that DC is keeping the TV series on the streaming service different than their movies. Like the TV shows are within their own universe, which that isn't even clear enough because, I mean, you do have references to, like in Doom Patrol, I think it was episode 2, Cyborg references the Flash. Like, oh, he's not really that fast. And something like that. And like Aquaman has been referenced in either Titans or Doom Patrol. And the question is, are they just referencing those like, hey, the TV series are in this little bubble. Of course, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman are going to be in that bubble.
Yeah.
But over here, we have like multiverses. This is a multiverse here. The TV is a different multiverse. So this Batman is different than that Batman. Is that what they're going for? Or when they reference the Flash on Doom Patrol, are they referencing Miller's Flash from the TV or from the movies? It's not that sure. So to me, the question is, if they're separate, doesn't matter. Have Deathstroke in it if you want. If they're connected, though, then it becomes a little tricky because I'm assuming Deathstroke is going to be in Titans sooner rather than later. Like, the two baddies that I thought of right off the bat for Titans when they announced it, Trigon and Deathstroke.
Yeah.
And then with Deathstroke, you better give me Terra because I love that character and I love how Deathstroke manipulates her to go against the Titans. Since I think they are keeping them separate, I think when the Flash is mentioned in the TV, that's a Flash that is the TV version's Flash and not Miller's Flash. Yeah, because of that, I feel like they could have Deathstroke in the movies and in TV, but would you want that? Would you want two versions of the same character?
We already had Slade Wilson Deathstroke in the TV version.
So but the CW is different.
I know. I'm saying though,
we've had him on TV. We've had him in and Arrow. That's the thing. We've had him in Arrow. We haven't had him yet in the DC Universe series, and now we've seen him a little bit. We saw him walk up on a boat. For the movies, do you think in the CW, I kind of write to the side because he's no longer in Arrow. Like, we're past that story.
We're past that story arc.
Just for the TV and movies, if you're Warner Brothers, if you're DC, are you okay with having two versions of the same character kind of going on at the same time?
As long as these universes aren't actually connected, that's fine because it's just like from actual TV, CW TV to the films.
Because really, the only one that was kind of conflicting was we had two versions of the Flash. Yeah, that basically, and I mean technically Gotham, but like little Bruce, older Bruce,
exactly.
Really
it doesn't really hit that too badly. So.
Really, actually, we do have two. We have the Flash from CW Flash and Movie Flash, and now streaming Cyborg to movie Cyborg. But we've only seen movie Cyborg in one film, and I don't know if they're in Justice League.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we only saw a glimpse of him in Batman v Superman.
And I don't know if there's that Cyborg movie that they were originally going to do. I haven't heard much about it. Right now, the only movies I hear on the slate, Joker, Wonder Woman, Aquaman they announced will be 2022.
Yes.
And then obviously the Flash movie.
Yes.
That they want to get out. Obviously Birds of Prey 2, as that's filming now. But yeah, like, I'll ask you this too. Do they need an actor like Manganiello to fill, do they need a big actor to fill Will Smith's shoes?
I would say it would help because you took out, you didn't take him out. You have one of your big actors isn't there anymore. Might help to have another bigger name actor to fill that slot. Because as long as you have Margot Robbie, that's one of your big name ones. Yeah,
she was. Let's be honest, she's the front of
She will be the front, yeah. As long as she's coming back too, which I'm pretty sure she will.
Even with Will Smith there, she was the face in my mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't Will Smith's Suicide Squad. No, it was Harley Quinn's Suicide Squad. She was the face of that unit.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think you can, as long you should try to get a bigger name actor, unless you're gonna like try and fill the. Let me see if I can get the names. Like you're gonna find some other roles to fill in, like for since El Diablo's deceased, you'll find someone to maybe fill in for him, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe you'll get some bigger names when you fill those roles back in with other characters now.
Well, because here's another interesting thing, and this is me just throwing a little bit to the pot, into the mixture to get your juices flowing. I know they're not the exact same, but James Gunn, coming from Guardians of the Galaxy, think about that team for a second, those actors. Chris Pratt, arguably you could say, did Guardians kind of catapult Chris Pratt's career and make him even bigger than he was. But Chris Pratt. Then you have Dave Bautista, who, yes, acting-wise was kind of just getting his chops under him, but as a entertainer,
he's already got a following.
Built a following from the WWE. And then you've got, Groot and Rocket, Bradley Cooper, who was coming off of The Hangover. Limitless. Like, he was a guy that's like, people know who Bradley Cooper is.
Same with Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel coming off of the Fast and the Furious movies. So, I mean, I would say every one of those, even, let me see.
Zoe Saldana.
Yeah, let me see the movies she was, because I'm not familiar with what she was. Oh, Star Trek. She was in so let's see, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, she was in the Star Trek movies, 2 Star Trek movies before Guardians of the Galaxy. So yeah, I would say, although people might not be like, oh, I know her name right away. Plus with her, it was a little different because when you're covered in green, it's kind of hard to like people could see in the face like, oh, that's who the actress is.
She also was in Avatar. Don't forget that.
That too. So most of these actors and actresses for Guardians of the Galaxy have had a foot firmly planted in the entertainment scene. Whereas you think back to Suicide Squad 1, how many of those actors and actresses from the main team did you know going in? Besides, let's say, Margot Robbie, Will Smith.
Not really. I also didn't even know many of about half the character, a little under half the characters. I didn't really know
let's
about.
Be honest, I was the same way for Guardians.
Like who's El Diablo, who's Slipknot, who's Enchantress. I knew of Killer Croc. I knew of Katana.
Yeah.
And Captain Boomerang, same thing. It's the only ones that Harley Quinn and Deadshot. I know of them. Who the hell's Rick Flag?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the whole thing of, with me, the thing they need to decide 2 things. First off, are they going to recast Deadshot or replace Deadshot? How important is that character to the story?
The other question is, can you find a replacement to kind of like finagle in there and not have Deadshot?
What do you mean?
Can you find a character that can do the same things or like play the same way, play it in there the same way Deadshot could have?
Kind of like you're saying how Deathstroke
could
work.
Be a fill-in.
Yeah, there's part of me that's like, I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if that makes a
that's the one thing I'm saying. Like it can to think about is like, hey,
because it depends on the story.
Can we replace him? Can we not? Like in that sense, it's like, is he that detrimental to the story where we can't just like? Can we throw any character in there, or can we just? Does it have to be that close of a character? That's another question. Like, you have to throw in there, but yeah,
that's another thing. In my mind, it's got to be a character the casual fan at least knows about. Because like Deadshot, I would say isn't diving too deep into the
not too hard
gallery.
Yeah, it's
like
not...
you might. More people than not, I would say, know who Deadshot is than like Diablo, or know who Deadshot is than Enchantress. That's just me assuming. I don't have any data for that.
Yeah, I would think so too, because like I even heard of Deadshot, and I'm not a huge DC guy, so it's like, yeah, I mean,
well, and it's like too, like I'm looking basically at different, because there's a ton of freaking villains that have been in, and the other thing you got to think about, and why Deathshot or Deathstroke might be the best option, is you're not going to use Black Adam because you're setting him up in the Shazam movies. Really, do you use any Batman kind of villain? Do you use a Poison Ivy? Do you use a Penguin? Do you cast I think Clayface was in the Suicide Squad at one point. Do you go with them? Because there's just so many Batman villains to where, hey, Matt, you're not going to use this guy? Cool. We're going to take him. Obviously, you're not going to use Speedy because the Flash movie wants to set up the Speedster universe. You're not going to use Killer Frost in my mind. So it's like, will it become, okay, we're not going to recast Deathstroke. All right. Or we're not going to recast Deadshot. All right, we have to go with Deathstroke. That's going to be kind of the decision that they make. Any final thoughts before we move on into X-Men?
I mean, you could use KG Beast.
You just like that name, don't you?
I thought it was funny.
See, I'm also looking.
I mean, he looks just like Deathstroke.
Oh, here's Johnny's favorite. You ready for this?
Oh, God.
The Sportsmaster.
Oh, God.
The sports, because Johnny's a big sports guy.
The hell did you find that one at?
The Sportsmaster, the Wikipedia page.
I'm on the Wikipedia page.
He was the bottom of Volume 1. He was the bottom of the first reincarnation.
I was in Volume 4.
Yeah.
And that's where I found KG Beast.
That's another thing. Which
volume do you go with?
Which volume? Like which years of Suicide Squad
are you gonna base off of?
Are you gonna go with? Because you're not. I don't think you're gonna go with Power Girl. You're not gonna go with Hawkman, and this is getting towards the end. Yeah, you know what? It's interesting to see which way they're gonna go, and we're not gonna know until James Gunn officially gets that script done. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think. How big of a blow? First off, how big of a blow is it that Will Smith won't be in Suicide Squad 2, if any, in your mind? And then number 2, what would you do with the character? Recast Deadshot and keep him in? Would you replace him with Manganiello's Deathstroke? Would you replace him with a different character? Let us know what you guys are thinking down below.